What's up, friends? Welcome back to the basement. Today I'm going to be giving my review on the Apple Plus show Monarch Legacy of Monsters. So this is a spin-off series that takes place within the modern Godzilla movie universe. And that includes the Godzilla that came out in 2014, Godzilla King of the Monsters, Kong Skull Island, and lastly Godzilla vs. Kong. As far as I know, I don't believe it is connected to the brand new Godzilla -1. Now, I don't think you will have needed to seen all these movies to understand and follow what is going on in Monarch, with the exception of Godzilla 2014. The show's primary story is directly involved with the events of that film, and it takes place timeline-wise before a couple of the other movies, with the exception of Kong Skull Island. So, this show attempts to be a few different things. First and foremost, more character-driven, more plot-based, at least as opposed to the movies. Also, a deep dive into the company Monarch, which plays a large role in the movies that have come before, and presumably a setup piece to another Godzilla Kong crossover movie that is supposed to be coming out later this year. Now, I say attempts because this show pulls those things off to varying degrees of success. For the more character-driven aspect that this show is going for, it kind of splits things up into two subplots that throughout the show run in different points in time. One is in this show's present time of 2015, taking place shortly after the events of the Godzilla 2014 movie. And the other part spends several years throughout the 1950s, focusing on the early days of Monarch. The best part of this character-driven focus is easily Kurt Russell and his son Wyatt playing the same character, Lee Shaw, who is one of the three founding members of Monarch. I imagine this was a lot of fun for Kurt and Wyatt, father and son playing the same character from two different time periods. I mean, that just sounds really cool. Now, Wyatt doesn't quite have the chops that his father does, but his mannerisms and really just the way he looks make it very believable that these guys are playing the same character. Now, I am just a big fan of Kurt Russell in general. I've thoroughly enjoyed most of his career, so I really enjoyed this particular dynamic of the show a lot. That being said, Wyatt's version of the younger Shaw, he does get to play the more enjoyable side of the two time periods happening here. His portion of the show involves the beginning of Monarch and their dealings with the US military, and that is easily the best aspect of the entire show. In the modern setting, we follow an older Lee Shaw as he's trying to help a group of kids, or young adults I guess, two of whom are siblings, kind of following their father's, I don't want to say his footsteps, but they're following his work with Monarch as they kind of globe-trot across the world, trying to find clues and answers to his death. However, this group of characters, being Kate, May, and Kentaro, this is the weak link in the show. They are all extremely irritating and just difficult to root for. Their dialogue and their banter amongst one another it's bad. It's just bad. I don't know what else to say. It's bad. Like, by the midpoint of the show, I mean, I was just hoping that it would spend more time with the group of characters from the 1950s. They were just so much more likable and enjoyable. The world building that this show attempts does add quite a bit to the Godzilla universe as a whole. You know, we kind of get to see the early days of Monarch and then also what it ultimately becomes and what we see in the movies. And it still leaves about 50 years worth of stuff unexplored that they can certainly tap into later should they choose to. There were some decent twists and turns throughout, especially in the last couple of episodes. Some of them stuck the landing better than others, but there definitely was some moments of closure or resolution for some of the characters that I liked quite a bit. There were also some cool Easter eggs and nods to the movies that this show would predate on the timeline, but I don't think there was anything there that you'd be missing out on if you hadn't seen them. As expected, the visuals in this show were pretty good for the most part. The set pieces involving Godzilla in particular were very good. Even though this show didn't have him like demolishing an entire city, it did a pretty cool job of just portraying like how massive and powerful he is. Some of the other titans that were introduced in this show came off kind of lame in comparison to Godzilla, but that's probably to be expected. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a bit of a globetrotter, so we do get to see many different settings throughout the course of this show. You got snow-covered Alaska, deserts, mountains, the wreckage from San Francisco, just to name a few. All these environments look pretty good and do a nice job of keeping the show visually interesting. One thing I'm not sure how I feel about, though, was the decision to have this show be a prelude to yet another Godzilla King Kong crossover that itself is going to be a prequel to two of the movies that are already out there. So if you've seen those movies, like, we already know where things are going to go eventually. So it just seems like they're padding an area in time that just doesn't need it. Personally, I would have rather have seen them tie this show directly into Godzilla King of the Monsters or even Godzilla vs. Kong instead of another prequel movie. Let's just keep things moving forward, if you will. So, in conclusion, I thought this was an alright show that had some neat ideas and injected them decently enough into the franchise, but was just bogged down by the dreadful characters in the modern time period. Seriously, I can't believe how much they brought the show down for me. So frustrating. And I'm not bagging on the actors here either. It's the characters that they were portraying. Honestly, I kind of hope that they don't show up in the upcoming movie. Sorry. So I will be giving this movie 3 out of 5 stars. Guys, thank you so much for your time. If you liked what you've seen here, please subscribe, hit that like button. And I think the next couple of things I got coming up that I'm going to be reviewing will be Marvel's show Echo and HBO's season 4 of True Detective, which I am very excited about. Thanks again, guys. I'm out of here.